Welcome back to the Punch channel. Taking a second look here at Battles in the East, Stalingrad Relief. This game is part of World at War magazine, number 107, the game edition. The game comes with it, and I'm very much liking what I see so far. So you can see that I've added a few optional features to the map here. So let's talk about those briefly. So first off, I added the release line here from 1701 to 1708. This line plus the Mishkova is a release line for the 57th Army and 64th Army units. Either they are stationary and non-aggressive unless they are attacked, or the German, it says German, but I'm going to assume Romanian as well. Once we cross the line of the Mishkova or 1701, 1708, they get released as well to do whatever they're going to do. These three dice represent the entry hexes for the 2nd Guards Army. The red arrows are just a straight up movement of, say, 2nd Romanian, ignoring Zox, full movement, aside from river issues here. And it's 5 moves plus a little to get up towards the Stalingrad pocket. Now these white X's are the 11th Panzer Regiment moving along this road line here, totally avoiding existing Soviet units. And so it's every 8 movement points. I am assuming, I haven't seen it, but I'm making a reasonable assumption that the river penalties do not count. The movement penalty, movement cost, does not count if you are on a road that crosses that river. I assume it is bridged. Red is 7-point mech infantry, Panzer Grenadiers. White is 5 movement points. So you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 for the Panzers. We have 4 and change. 4 and change for the Panzer Grenadiers, and we have, again, 1, 2, 3, 6 for infantry. So this is a 10-turn game, and so that's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. I just need a corridor, and I need that corridor to hold. I'm not quite sure the victory point. Is it a one-time thing, or is it holding, is the corridor open at the end of the last turn? At the end of the game, 1 victory point for each 4K unit able to trace a line of supply of any length to 57th Panzer Corps headquarters at the end of the game. So that's interesting. And holding Kotelnikovo gives me a couple. Holding, or at least being the last to pass through Lyapachev, Karpovka is right here. Beketovka is right here. And Verkhnekh-Umsky, where on earth is that? It's around. It'll show up. Oh, here it is. Funny. It's spelled differently on the map than it is in the book. E versus I over here on the rules. That's okay. It's the same place. They're all marked. There's one more. Akse. Okay, Akse is right here. They're all marked with, conveniently marked with these black German military crosses here to indicate that. And so I need to get at least 8 victory points. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 1 victory point each when I enter the 0708 hex rows. That's these hex rows right through here. So if we have reached the defenses. So I can hold, I don't think I can hold that. Might lose a couple there out of, let's assume holding Kotelnikovo, tricky. So there's 7 for cities. Yeah, and then one for every unit. So yeah, there's ways to make it happen here without actually getting to these guys. Okay, so it's interesting. The terrain is interesting. The Soviets are coming from the major forces of the Soviets are coming in this direction, and they are working generally with the river lines. All right, the river lines do not form a particular barrier to their advance, unfortunately. So, yeah, cool. Well, anyway, that is what we've got going on here. I put in the notes here for supply for 57th, 64th, 51st Army, and 2nd Guards Army. I put in the notes as well for 4th Corps, 4th Romanian Army down here, and the 57th Panzer Corps. Now, the notes for 57th Panzer Corps state that game turn 1 attack, maximum of 1 attacks including overrun. Game turns 2 through 8 attack, maximum of 3 attacks including overrun. That's attack supply, rather. And I'm going to assume, if necessary, house rule it that the 1 attack and the 3 attack means attacks done under attack supply, that any number of attacks can be done under general supply during those turns, because otherwise, good game, well played. I wouldn't care to play the Axis side on this one. I think that it could have been more clearly stated if that was the intent, and that's okay. But intent or not, that's how I'm going to play it, because I don't believe the Germans could be competitive if they are making 1 attack period on the first turn, 3 attacks period on the 2nd through 8th turns. That just seems unreasonable. I believe it's 1 attack under attack supply rules, 3 attacks overruns under attack supply rules between 2 and 8. That's fine. I'm good with that. But so that's how I'm going to play it. So I'm going to come back and talk about some housekeeping stuff, and hopefully then we can get into something a little more awesome. So talking about housekeeping, I'm zoomed in here on the game turn record track in this area, and I'm going to use it for several different purposes here. Obviously, I'm going to use it to count the progression of the game by moving the game turn marker. That's fine. Also, I'm going to use it as a victory point tracker. It seems to be about the right number of spaces to go for victory points. The victory levels are on a 10 scale, with 0 being a Soviet strategic victory, 10 being the Axis strategic victory. Then we have Axis operational victories here. 5 through 7 are a draw, and 1 through 4 is a Soviet operational victory. So I think there's no instruction on actually how to use this victory point counter, but this seems to be the obvious way to do it. Now you notice I've got a bit of clutter here, but I'm also putting reinforcements in place, including air on the appropriate turns. There seems to be enough room to do it. I've put the reinforcements by turn for both the Axis and the Soviet. I haven't put everything here. I didn't want it to get too cluttered. There's not a whole lot of room, so I've rotated somewhat some of these counters to indicate that there are additional forces off map. And so that's my intention for here. Now, just off camera, let's see if we can get these on camera. Bear with me. All right. Okay, fair enough. So we have the terrain effects chart and the combat results table and additional information. If I recall correctly, on Board Game Geek, someone has posted pictures of these as JPEG files, and so I will grab, actually I've already gone out and grabbed those files, and what I'll do is I'll set up, I can print these off, double-sided on cardstock, and so that will give me a player aid card. And it's perfectly fine where they're placed on the map, but you'll notice that I placed the map here on the table in landscape orientation, if you will, just because that's the way that my table works in this room. I can do a full map, just one full map, maybe a touch more, and I need it to be in this orientation. I don't mind so much the turn record track. That's okay. That's not too bad. But continually going back and forth to the TEC and the CRT is going to result in some serious neck strain. Not a knock against the layout of the game at all. But actually, I would recommend, however, for people who acquire the game and wish to play, probably grab these. Grab copies of those PDFs, and like I said, I'll include the link below. Grab copies of the PDFs and do some printouts, because I'm thinking that reaching these will certainly be at arm's length at some angle as well. If you are having to look across the table, if you happen to be running in portrait mode, right, which is the orientation of the map, they're going to be a long ways off, and the fonts are reasonable sized. The letters are reasonable sized, but still having to look at it from about 3 feet slant distance away, it's tough to make out. So that's what I would recommend. Okay. So what else can I say about this? Yes, well, okay, let's see if we can reorient this sucker again. I'm going to try and do this in one shot. Go figure. Right, okay, back on the map focus rather. Right, you notice that compared to earlier in this video, I put the out of supply markers where they need to be. So my understanding is that in order to be in supply, Soviet units must trace a line of supply to their controlling headquarters. And the controlling headquarters specifies the length of that line of supply with the number in the upper right-hand corner. In this particular case, for 51st Army, it is 5 hexes. Now, I note it's also the same for 57th and for 5th. 2nd Guards, hopefully that's reasonably visible there. 2nd Guards is 7 hexes. So that's what we've got to work with on the Soviet side. Anyway, I've marked as out of supply everyone who is in fact out of supply at the start of the game. 5, yeah, that's good. Right. Probably a good time to segue and gather my thoughts to wrap everything up here. Okay, a few final thoughts, and then I will wrap up this video. Right, first, a couple of notes of things I've spotted in the rules. So first, the ZOCs, zones of control in this game, are rather sticky. It does cost, you can get out of them, which is good. It costs 2 movement points, and there are potential timing restrictions as to when you can expend those points. So I think possibly it may be reasonable to try kind of a pick and roll technique. And apparently the ZOCs will extend across a minor river, so that's interesting. I think that the German cause is going to be best forwarded by moving rather than by combat. And so I need to, it's not important that I wipe out the 51st Army units, because if I spend the time to do that, then I'll have the 2nd Guards units coming as reinforcements, and I'll get bogged down presumably here along the line of the Mishkova. That's what I think is likely to happen if I spend too much time fighting the Soviets. And the Soviet units are they're not terribly strong. These units are all holding forces. There's some armor there. And Cav, Fort, Fortified Region, I guess, Brigade, FR. And so none of these units are terribly strong compared to what we've got with. So there's another armor brigade that time, armor brigade. So fairly weak units. I think the strongest unit here is a 2, and it's this one. So compared to the strengths available to the German forces, particularly the Panzer forces, there's not a whole lot of them. You know, there's not a whole lot of them, but hopefully enough to get things done. And it's actually not horrible on the part of the, the initial correlation of forces here is not too bad as far as the axis is concerned. But the whole point is, really, I think the whole point of the game is, for the Germans, is not to fight. Don't fight unless you absolutely have to. Fight in order to move. And I think that would be the way to go. So, for example, I don't have much of an intention to engage this guy here. He's rather in the way, and he's going to push off the German forces, but I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right here. Or something like that. That's going to be interesting to see how that actually works out. Okay, so that's Zox and some German intentions there. I note the attack limits. So 57th Panzer Corps, I've got the notes written here just off camera. Let's see if I can come over. There we go. Just enough to do it. So I've written them down here on grease pencil on top of the plexiglass. 57th Panzer Corps is limited to 1 attack on game turn 1, whether it's an attack or an overrun, and 3 attacks on each of game turns 2 through 8. Now, it's not absolutely clear as written in the instructions, but I'm going to treat those as, that means that I can take 1 attack in attack supply on game turn 1, and 3 attacks or overruns in attack supply on game turns 2 through 8. And then, of course, turns 9 through 10 are general supply. That doesn't mean, I'm choosing to interpret that to mean that I can make plenty of other attacks under general supply rules. Otherwise, I don't think the game would be, I think that the game would have balance problems if that were not the case. So the rules say, attack maximum of 3 attacks or overruns. I'm going to choose to say maximum of 3 attacks or overruns in attack supply. So I think that will be fine. And those limitations are not placed elsewhere, but I assume that these are supply limitations on the part of the Germans, it being that kind of situation. And that's fine, I can live with that. The Soviets do not have the same sort of limitations for their attack supply. That's fine too. Okay. My intentions are I would like to do 2 run-throughs for starters on the game. I've set up here historically. Okay. I'm going to do a historical run-through with a historical order of battle. I'm not going to use any of the optional troops on either side. And so the intention will be, okay, let's see how it is. For the second run-through, the second play, I'm going to max out the German side. What if I have all of the optional forces for the Germans? I'm not going to worry about victory point consequences so much. I mean, certainly I will count them up at the end of the game. That will be nice. But I would like to know, like to get a feel for the idea of, well, could they have made it if they had tried harder, right? And yeah, I'm not going to get too hung up on a victory point balance, right? So if I bring in a formation from the optional troops, I lose victory points. Therefore, it acts as a natural break on that kind of decision, and I'm going to go with no breaks whatsoever. So there is a historical start option that's here in the rules. One last page. Historical start option that's here in the rules, and I don't think I'm going to utilize that on either of the two playthroughs that I'm intending at this point. I don't know. It's interesting. I may actually play it and then reset. So we'll see. But it's a half move and a quarter mech move. No attacks, overruns. I mean, I like the idea of getting a running start, but yeah. No mech move. Soviets get a half move. Out of supply, quarter move. Remainder of the Soviet player turn is skipped on game turn 1. Okay, so basically it's a combat-free turn with 1 1/4, with a half move and then a quarter mech move, whereas the Soviets get a half move, quarter move out of supply, no mech move, and no combat. That's interesting. Again, back to the idea that the Germans really need to move, they don't need to fight. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, this is a learning game. It's my first time with the Battles in the East system, and so I am going to make a lot of mistakes, guaranteed. There are going to be retcons, retroactive continuities, as I go through, very, very likely from turn to turn. I hope to video some gameplay. I'll most likely video recaps, and I'll go from there. So thank you if you made it this far in the video, and appreciate it, and love to hear your comments below in terms of where I'm headed, and other observations you might care to make. And I hope you like and subscribe. Of course, this is on YouTube. That's the thing. And I will see you down the road.